Of course, my topic this morning is a new freedom. And I noticed in our song, we're born free to follow our heart, and the impossible dream. And I feel that freedom is what our life is all about. And as Sandy was sharing the words of the impossible dream, I have discovered for myself, and I'm not going to lay my trip upon you, however, to find our freedom and to find the truth that shall set us free. Sometimes it appears that we march into hell, but we march into hell for a heavenly cause, because our cause and our purpose for being here is to find the truth and to be free, to break free, to dare to be who we are, to be true to who we are, to accept and to love and to appreciate who and what we are. And so our whole journey, in my opinion, is finding the truth that will set us free, but really breaking free. And so what and how do we do that? A new freedom. First of all, we have to be willing to march into hell. We have to be willing to let go of the past. We have to be willing to have a new viewpoint. We have to be willing to do the work that it takes to think straight, to have clear thinking, to develop our faith. And the way we do this is through our experience with the presence of God. And you know, this is called the science of the mind. We teach a science of thinking, but it is so spiritual, because we believe in spiritual mind healing. And a spiritual consciousness is power. What we really are developing is our power. We're developing our spiritual awareness of the nature of God, of the nature and the laws of thought, of accepting that the law of cause and effect is the law of life, and that it is a principle. And that as we learn principles, as we apply these principles to our lives, we find that our lives can be transformed. And we find that some of those impossible dreams become possible. And we find that we are in a greater sense of peace, because as we discover the truth about our relationship with God and good, we discover that it is up to us to judge not by outer appearances. To be healed, we can heal ourselves, but to be healed and to have a new freedom also involves a new responsibility. We have to give up our alibis. We have to give up our excuses. We have to give up perhaps the habitual patterns of thinking that we blame God or circumstance or event for our problem, and that we have to indeed take charge of our thinking. But you know, the statement in the textbook that is one of my favorite statements, to learn how to think is to learn how to live, is so true. And that we are here to learn how to think. And we learn how to do this, in my opinion, at least in my experience, step by step, degree by degree. That we heal our habitual thoughts of patterns of thought that have really been burdens, that have been bondage in our world of experience. And so we discover a new freedom, that we really do have choice, and that we can choose a new thought. We can choose to drop the old and move on. We can choose to have a new vision. And yes, we can choose to have a new dream. And that there is a way for the dreams and the visions and the new thoughts and the new ideas to come forth into our world as something greater and something more wonderful than we've ever experienced before. And this something greater and this something more wonderful is because of our relationship with God. And therefore, this church is founded on our learning how to think, learning how to align ourselves with the truth. It is founded upon our willingness to act, not just sit there, but live. And we all want to live. And I'm sure that everyone here this morning wants freedom from something or in something. We either want freedom in health, or freedom in our world of finance, freedom, greater freedom in our world of relationships, and more than anything else, a greater freedom in our world, in our relationship of the self with the self. The only broken relationship you and I have is this relationship of the self with the self. And the only way that we can heal that is to understand who that self really is. A new freedom. The only freedom probably that any of us really needs, and it's certainly a big one, is freedom from fear. You know, we're afraid to live and we're afraid to die. We feel that we're not smart enough, that we're not good enough, that we are not adequate enough. We feel that the terrible burden of that we need other people's approval, or that what I do defines who and what I am. And we have all of these fears, and that the truth that sets us free is that we are set free from fear. Because degree by degree, as we let go of our fears, do we find a new freedom. And when you and I can sit here today and be here today and know that we can choose a new thought, that we can choose to align ourselves with the nature of good, and that there is this principle of cause and effect, and that what we think and how we feel is outpictured in our world of experience, because life is lived through a law of reflection. And we can have a new thought, a new image, and we can have a new experience. What a great gift. What freedom. We are born free, and we're born free to follow our heart. And you and I want to know this, and we want to know that there is a way that we can find freedom in the thing that disturbs us, or in the situation that we feel limits us from experiencing and expressing our freedom. One of the lessons that we learn, and this is part of the march into hell, is that we have to let go of our expectations and our dependency that other people are going to fill our hearts and are going to make our world one of wonder. Because how it all is that we do it within our own minds, and in our own thoughts, within our own attitudes, and within our own feelings. Ernest Holmes makes the statement, and I've used it this morning already, that this teaching is a persistent, stubborn effort to think straight. And prayer treatment, our technique of spiritual mind healing, is the way we think straight. It is the way we clear our minds. It is the way that we stir up our faith. It is the way that we develop our spiritual oneness, and then we speak our word with authority. The miracle of it all is that our authority and the healing and the answered prayers and the demonstrations are in direct relationship to our word, and that our word indeed has authority. And we are speaking that word all the time. That we are always in the process of creating. But what we need to question is the thing I'm thinking about that which I want to experience? Is the thing that I'm thinking about, are these feelings that I'm experiencing, are they going to add into the desires of good in my life? And if they are not, we have the freedom to choose a new way, a new idea, a new thought. How great it is that we're not stuck and we're not bound to the limited concepts of thinking and belief that we have perhaps been using for many, many years. That there is a way out, and the way out is the way in. I want to share with you some statements on the first chapter of the Science of Mind textbook written by Dr. Ernest Holmes. These statements, I'm hoping, will be meaningful to you, and these statements were very meaningful to me. Now, these statements I have been working on with a stubborn and persistent effort all the years that I've been in this teaching, and they've been a lot of years, not 91, but a lot. And so, but they're the things that kept me keeping on. that kept me keeping on when it appeared that I couldn't change my belief system, when it appeared that I couldn't let go of those old habit patterns of thinking that were limiting my life and limiting my good, habit patterns that I had to be perfect, habit patterns of thinking that if whatever I did was never good enough, habit patterns of thinking that lack and limitation in my world of finance is just the way it is. And so these ideas of freedom stirred my heart, and as I said, they keep me keeping on. The divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. The truth points to freedom under law. And you see, we have to understand this, and what a great opportunity it is for us to understand the law, the principle of cause and effect. Because it's only as we understand this law that the truth can point to freedom. And the freedom is that the law responds by corresponding to that which we believe. And we can change our belief system, and that's why we can heal our lives. The inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. That's inherent. It's born. We're born free. We're born with this inherent feeling, this inherent nature to forever seek ourself and our world in terms of freedom. So the feelings that you have that you want to be free from this situation, free from this fear, that those are feelings that are inherent, and freedom is our destiny. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, a love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom that the soul craves. And so this is the great promise, you see, of this teaching, of the persistent and stubborn effort that you and I participate in order to change our world of experience, in order to align ourselves with that cosmic reality of wholeness. You and I can do this. What freedom! What a gift! What an assignment! It's a lifetime project, but what joy! The conscious mind is superior to the subjective and may consciously use it. Great as the subconscious is, its tendency is set in motion by the conscious thought, and in this possibility lies the path to freedom. The road to freedom lies through the intelligent use of nature's forces and laws. There's a great statement that we are here to learn how to use intelligence intelligently. We're here to learn how to think intelligently. And we are intelligent people. And as a matter of fact, this teaching attracts people who are thinkers. And how that's fortunate, because we have to learn how to do a lot of thinking in this particular teaching. We have to learn to think in terms of God's vision and see from God's viewpoint, because we learn that we want to use this law intelligently, and that our thought and our feelings direct it, and that it is impersonal and it responds to you and to me directly according to that which we believe, that which we think in our heart. And therefore, what we really are doing is healing our hearts. We are learning to love God, for all things do work together for good for those who love God. And you see, love is the bottom line. And I spoke a couple of Sundays ago about how we must learn how to love the self, that we must learn that God approves of us and that we need to approve of ourselves. It does not mean that we rest on our laurels, because when we get a handle on the fact that we're not guilty, that there's not a power that's punishing us other than our use of this principle, this law, cause and effect, and that as we get a handle on this, we discover a greater degree of freedom. As we begin to develop a deeper faith on our self, our dignity, and our self-esteem, and the selfhood of God that is the truth about us, a wonderful thing happens. We begin to let go of the tyranny of the shoulds. We begin to relax a little more. We begin to know that we are going to give everything we do our best shot in each moment of time, and therefore we're not going to criticize ourselves and self-depreciate the self. And so we find a greater sense of ease, and most certainly we find a greater peace. And as we discover this, we find that we're not comparing ourselves to all those other people so often. We find that we accept our own uniqueness and our own capabilities and our own greatness and that which is special and wonderful that each one of us individually has to contribute to life. We do have a greater vision, and that greater vision is being able to reach out and to touch other people. That greater vision includes that we dare to communicate the self that we are. See, all these fears, we're afraid to tell someone else who we are. We're afraid of failure, and we're afraid of success. We're afraid of something happening to those that we love. We have to learn to get over these fears. And I share in classes, and I've shared before, but a definition for fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And when you and I are dealing with the circumstances and the conditions and the experiences of life, we have a lot of opportunities to know that that thing out there is false evidence appearing real, because it is to us the way we judge it. And Ernest Holmes tells us, as did the teacher Jesus, that we have to judge not by outer appearances. And this is what we have to do to clear our minds, to think straight. When that appearance is so threatening, and that appearance is what they say it is, and that appearance maybe is even terminal, we have to look through that appearance and not judge by that appearance, and know that there's a greater truth and a greater power, and that the power of God is greater than any power that's in the world. And this is what you and I are in the process of doing, and this is a new freedom. And thank God we have this teaching and this technique of prayer and this type of thinking that says we have the freedom to contact this higher power. We have the freedom to experience this indwelling presence. And we have the freedom to experience this peace, a peace that does passeth all understanding, when sometimes that world of experience is turned upside down. And so you and I have to be willing to look beyond the appearances. We have to be willing to judge not by how it all seems. And one of the things I think that we learn is how often we judge things and we find out that that isn't the way it is at all. How easy it is for us to react to someone, to what they're doing or what they're saying, and not understanding where that person is really coming from. And so what is our experience of that? We have an experience of hurt. We have an experience of rejection. We have an experience of anger. And so a new freedom allows us to not only to allow ourselves to not be perfect, but also to give that same freedom to the people in our world, and to be able to communicate how we feel. Because we really need to express all of our problems, physical, environmental, relational, are due to the fact that we suppress and repress how we feel and what we think. And we've learned that as little children. We've learned to keep our mouths closed so we'll get approval. But we have a right to express how we feel. And I'm telling you that if we don't learn how to, that it's going to, quotes, kill us. And none of us want that. That we need to learn to be diplomatic, and we will eventually. But in the beginning, when you're learning to express, and this is freedom, it's okay to say, this is how I feel. Yesterday, saw the wonderful new film, Woody Allen's films, and his films are all wonderful. And it was called Hannah's Three Sisters. And if you haven't seen it, you must see it. But I noticed the dialogue in that film, and how the dialogue was so open and honest, and what tremendous communication. And I was just so aware of how this nurtures a relationship, how this frees us from suppressing and repressing until it makes us sick. And so we do have an opportunity for a new freedom. And that freedom includes aligning ourselves with that which we desire to bring forth into our lives. And sometimes that's effort. It's much easier to align ourselves with the stuff and with the problems. It really takes effort to see beyond the appearance. It really takes effort to clear our minds and to clear our thoughts and to go back to principle and to go back to the beginning. But I promise you that if you will do this, when that thing is threatening you, and that fear is making its appearance again, that false evidence appearing real, if you will take the time and the effort to clear your mind and to go back to the truth, you'll find a freedom. You'll find a sense of peace. You will find a sense of release. And this is what life requires of all of us. We're here for a heavenly cause, and that's to find our God self. That process is a growing process. And sometimes that process is hell. But you and I know that hell and heaven are states of consciousness, and that we can truly bring heaven to earth, or heaven into our world of experience. But we have to find it first, and nobody can keep you and I from discovering it or finding it. It is within. And therefore it's in our own secret place where you and I make this contact, and where we enter in to this truth that shall set us free. The statement of the teacher Jesus is, you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It's a process, and all life is a process. And the shall means it is step by step and day by day and prayer by prayer and experience by experience. But one thing I can stand here and tell you that I know for sure, that every experience and every effort and every prayer and every time that we go back and clear our minds and get our thinking straight, you have a stronger faith, and you have a deeper faith, and you have a greater authority. It is not your personal authority. It's your authority in aligning your word with the word of God and the word of truth. I do know that there is an answer. And I do know and I do believe if God did not create it, it is subject to change. But I also know that our cooperation is needed, that we need to cooperate. And how do we do this? By taking charge of our thinking, by really learning how to think, by really not being afraid to live, by being willing to drop it all yesterday and walk on, because that's what life is all about. And that in each day can we create a new heaven, a new experience, because we have a new freedom and we have a new choice. And so the conscious mind is superior to the subjective. And that means that you and I, as I shared last week, the words of Joseph Murphy, that we do not have to worry about the subconscious or the subjective. What we need to be concerned with is our conscious mind, our conscious thinking, and what we are doing with it, because your thought is creative. And what we do in this healing process is that we align ourselves with first cause. First cause is God. First cause is pure spirit. First cause is that God, that spirit, that intelligence, that energy that created everything out of itself after a pattern of wholeness and perfection. And we have to remember that behind everything, every situation, every circumstance, and every event, there is a pattern of wholeness. And you know, Ernest Holmes made this statement, and I want to find it, that man, if I can find it, the imperfect has been added by the human mind. We have added the imperfect. First cause, pure spirit, the nature of wholeness. That is the truth. And this is what we align ourselves with. Man has added the imperfect. And so we have to, and guess what? If man has added it, We can subtract it. And we have the opportunity and the privilege and the freedom to do just that. And so we need to look, when we see the imperfect out there, not that we're not denying that it's a real experience. The thing we deny is that there is no cosmic necessity, no cosmic ordination for that suffering or for that lack. And so man has created the imperfect. And guess what? What we are here to do then is to use our freedom of choice, our freedom to think, to use our power and to align ourselves with that which is whole, with the perfect pattern, with the answer. And this is the whole technique of spiritual mind healing. Ernest Holmes makes the statement that the day will come when we really will not use this technique of prayer to demonstrate or to get things. That what we will do is really use this technique to demonstrate consciousness, because that's the law of life. And as we work on a consciousness of health, and a consciousness of prosperity, a consciousness of success, and a consciousness of love, and a consciousness of self-respect and self-esteem, then our world does outpicture whatever that is. And furthermore, a spiritual consciousness is power. And so all of these thoughts and all of these ideas that I've shared with you this morning, and of course the person I really share them with is Kathleen McLaughlin, I'm hoping that we will be stirred up to claim our right for a greater freedom, for a greater peace, and for a greater wholeness in every area of our lives. I'm hoping that perhaps you have made some inner decisions to take charge of your thought and to watch those old patterns that are limit us and cause lack in some way, and that we are going to drop the past, and that we're going to move from this point forward, and knowing that we can choose, and that there is no dream that is impossible, and that again we have a right, that we're born free to follow our heart. The thing that we learn as we are growing in our spiritual awareness is that God is for us, and that the universe supports our dreams. The universe supports our heart's desires. We have to support them with our prayers, with our positive thinking, with our creative dynamic alignment with that which is wonderful, and with that, whatever that is, that already has a perfect pattern. We have to align ourselves with that cosmic wholeness that is the only reality that there is. Now, I know that we cannot always do this, and most certainly I cannot always do this, but I do know what to do when I'm caught in the effect. I know that I can go back to principle, and I can go back to the truth, and I can let those ideas and those thoughts and those statements move through my mind until I have a feeling in my heart, in my soul, and that feeling is one of faith. It's one of belief. It's one of authority, and it's one of power. All power is given unto you. All power is given unto me. We're here to use it, to direct it, to use this creative intelligence in a creative, intelligent way. We're here to direct this intelligence through the power of our thought and our feeling and our alignment and our images and our visions and our dreams. We're here to do just that. In the April magazine of Science of Mind, there's another article by Dr. Joseph Murphy, and you can't buy the magazine yet because we don't put it on sale to the last Sunday of the month. We sold all of our March magazines, but I want to share just an excerpt from the article. And Dr. Murphy advises us to dream lofty dreams, to acquire ideals, to realize and know you go where your vision is. Cherish the vision of what you want to be. Nourish your ideal. Feel the music that stirs in your heart. Contemplate the indescribable beauty of God and nature. Out of these frequent, habitations of your mind will grow your delightful conditions and experiences. Your vision is a definite promise of what you one day shall be. Your ideal is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil. God waits for his unfoldment in you. One with God is a majority. If God is for you, who can be against you? Believe this wholeheartedly, and all things will work together for your good, and your experiences will be filled with joy and good fortune. Yes, the promise is great, and it's up to us, and we have the opportunity and we have the freedom to allow this promise to be a living experience, a dynamic adventure. And I want to close with one more statement. Ernest Holmes states, our goal then is to know that God is all there is, and that this allness is right where we are. May we take this final thought with us, and all those other wonderful thoughts that have been stimulated in your thinking, in your mind, and in your heart this morning. Again, our goal is to know that God is all there is, and that this allness is right where I am. Let that be your affirmation, your prayer, your mantra this day, and you will see a new world, a new freedom, and truly a new joy and love. This is the promise, and the promise is true. All the promises of God are true. It's up to us to get our belief in the right place where we can accept the promises of God. God, the allness of God, is right where you are. And so it is, and so ends the lesson this morning. Thank you for being here this morning.